Hey everyone, Chris here. I just wanted to film a quick video kind of addressing a common misconception with bonsai, which is that they all belong indoors. Now, of course, there are certain species that do really well indoors, whether that be a plant that is maybe in an environment in the wild that has a lot more canopied trees over the top of it, so maybe it's in a really low light situation, or maybe there's the temperature conditions and humidity conditions in a certain room you have better suit that species. But many of the common species we see, like juniper and elm and some of the deciduous trees and species and succulents and whatnot that we see used in bonsai, don't do well indoors. And you might be able to bring them in periodically for little periods at a time, but ultimately they need to be outside where they can get kind of the natural sunlight throughout the day and the breezes and sort of the environment outside. One of the negative things about sort of bonsai on a more commercial level is oftentimes in big box stores you will see them displayed indoors, and you'll often see species that are supposed to be outside being displayed indoors. So when people buy them, they often think, well, I'm just supposed to put it on a counter in my house or on my kitchen, near my kitchen sink or near my bathroom sink or something. Like I'm in my restroom right now, and the plants are doing fine when they're displayed for a short period of time indoors, but once people get them home and over time the plant starts to suffer. So what I wanted to show you was an example of that. What I have here is, this is sort of my display of bonsai when I'm going to go out of town. So this last month of June was pretty crazy. I was out of town for a couple weeks and then my laziness set in and I was taking forever to get these back outside. But I kind of decided to use my laziness to an advantage for this video purpose, and as the weeks went on, I realized that my plants looked like they were starting to suffer. So I thought I'll make a video to show you sort of what's happening. So I'll just show you a few examples. When I get nice and close on this succulent, you've probably seen this in several videos, you'll notice that so many of the leaves, see if I can get it to focus here, you notice that so many of the leaves are getting really thin. They're starting to look honestly nothing like what the leaves look like prior to being inside. You know, typically they have more of this like fat kind of plump look, and you could tell all of them are trying to reach for the one window I have in here. Even my mulberry that you've seen in videos, it's just definitely starting to suffer, starting to get really spindly, losing a lot of leaves, even the tops of these branches just looking pretty weak and frail, and then some of these other plants, the juniper. My juniper here is still sprouting new buds and branches, but they're all kind of reaching for the sunlight. This plant is not doing well at all. And yeah, I just wanted to show you how over time, these have now been in here for over a month, which I do not recommend. Totally my fault. Like I said, I was being lazy about it. I'm going to move them all outside today. But these are all plants that do so much better outside. And it just goes to show that when you keep them inside, they will often suffer. And another thing that I noticed, let me flip it back around so I can look at you all. Another thing that I noticed was it was actually harder for me to maintain a regular watering schedule when they were inside, which is kind of ironic because I brought them inside while I was out of town, or to prepare for being out of town, so that people who are watching my plants didn't have to water them as much because they weren't sitting outside in 100-degree Southern California summer weather. But that's the kind of ironic thing, is that it actually became harder for me once I got back to know how often to water them because they weren't on this regular routine. So that's another kind of downside, is that your plants might be susceptible to overwatering or underwatering if they're kept indoors, because again, we're trying to grow them in an environment that these so often plants don't do well in. So I just wanted to take a moment and film that and just show you a few examples of how these plants just aren't doing well. You can see some of these have lost so many of their nice healthy leaves, and they're just trying to make do with these little branches they're pushing out, and they're really thin, really weak looking. So I'm not going to waste any more time. I'm going to get these things outside and hopefully into the sunlight they're craving, and they'll start perking back up and getting healthy again. Here's a comparison real quick to show you the difference between one that was indoors for a month versus one that wasn't. So you can see the one kept indoors, very thin, weak looking new growth. You see that, the light green, very weak looking. And here's a much smaller plant, but that has some new growth from being outside, and I'm sure not getting a ton of water just because it's so hot, or it's getting water but soaking it up really quick. But you can see just how much fatter, how much healthier the new growth looks versus this one right here. So I just want to show you that quick comparison. Ah, back where you belong.